idea that the conscience is keeping us held back from our creative expression. Our moral values are acting like a crutch, and we have to overcome that by becoming more courageous. And so when I look at Elon, I look at his grandfather as part of, the Joshua Haldeman operation, and the fact that Haldeman was the expert at building up third parties in the 1930s and 40s, and he was the head of Technocracy Inc. Incorporated, which Elon has referred to very fondly. Elon just being a cardboard synthetic cutout in my mind, but his grandfather was also not, he didn't just call for creating a technocracy, a Technate of North America that would involve getting rid of dollars and currency and elected governments in order to move power to an unelected agency of scientific engineers and experts who would artificially induce the destruction of civilization first. That was part of the Haldeman formula, was a mass strike of the scientific engineers who would control the levers of production, who could coordinate on a coordinated level, shut it all down in order to then control the terms of its restart under the form of what they would create as a technate that would allocate credit scores that people could access that would expire to every citizen based upon how many calories people need to survive and how much energy generally can be calculated or quantified that an average human being should be allowed to expect to use. And that's how they would define the value system of the technate currency that would involve Greenland all the way to Panama. Also, before that, though, because that was not successful, he got thrown in jail in 1940 for being on the wrong side of World War II. This was clearly fascist agency. So he was arrested, Joshua Haldeman. Before he did Technocracy Inc., though, he was the head of the Saskatchewan branch of the Canadian Fabian Society and directly participated in the authoring of the Regina Manifesto in 1932 or 1933, which was a manifesto that called for the overthrow of capitalism and the creation of a new scientific dictatorship under scientifically managed society under the Fabian. And that at that time, that branch, it was run by 4 or 5 Rhodes Scholars, one of whom went on to found NATO. The other one was a handler of Pierre Elliott Trudeau. It was called the League for Social Reconstruction. Their political branch became known as the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, which Joshua Haldeman ran for 3 years. And then it changed its name into the NDP. And at that time in the 60s, many of its leading controllers went and, like a virus, took over the host cell of the Liberal Party from 1958 to 63, which is the period of this viral takeover. So then the Fabian Society sort of controlled both the orange NDP as well as the red Liberals of Canada after that moment with Pierre Elliott Trudeau onward. That's what's behind the universal healthcare system of Canada, is these guys. The idea was to always create a control mechanism to make it more favorable, not to sustain Canadian health of the citizenry, but rather at a time of crisis to better have a command and control over the mass killing of useless eaters, which was always the reason why these guys in their inner core did universal healthcare. I'm for universal healthcare, but I'm not for this variety of it because the agenda was always depopulation. So all that to say, this is the thing. Oh yeah, and then afterwards, Elon Musk's grandfather, when he gets out of jail, he then goes and creates another third party called the Social Credit Party of Saskatchewan that he leads for another 6 years before that doesn't work. Which, by the way, the Social Credit Party of Canada that he runs from 1943 to 1949, and he runs for parliamentary office in Canada. He's not successful, but it's itself created by this guy, Major C.H. Douglas. And C.H. Douglas, who creates it as a British intelligence operative of the World War I to 1920s period, who was a disciple of A.J Orage. A.J Orage is the head, the architect of New Age magazine. It's a theosophical journal. He's a theosophist, a Luciferian. He runs New Age magazine. He publishes Aleister Crowley, works with Aleister Crowley. He's the disciple of Gurdjieff, his personal secretary of Gurdjieff, who's himself also in a high-level occult intelligence operative. So that's what Orage is a part of. That's what C.H. Douglas is a part of. That's what creates the social credit system of Canada. That then becomes the government of Alberta and the government of British Columbia that brings in eugenics in the 1930s, 31 to 33. before the Nazis do. And so this is what Joshua Haldeman was trying to bring into Saskatchewan. This is what, when it failed, this is why he chose to go to the freest place on the globe in 1949, which he deemed as South Africa, which had just embraced apartheid and created a multi-tier system categorizing different species of human, from the purity of the Aryan Nordic race group races, all the way down to the mixed races who would have less rights, down to the purely blacks, most inferior of the races. And they had something like 9 different species types of human who would all be graded with different types of credit systems, be allocated to different districts that they would be allowed to live in South Africa. It was disgusting, but that's what he thought was the greatest representative government of freedom against Jewish global banking mafias. And he was a polemicist. He published books going through the protocols of Zion, calling out the international Rothschild banking empire that's trying to enslave the world. So he sounds a lot like your typical modern conspiracy theorist when you read Joshua Haldeman's writings. And he spends his time looking for this theosophical, mythical, underground city of Kalahari in the desert, and he ends up disappearing. Some say he didn't die. He went, I don't know. But some say he went on to become a leader of Silicon Valley. I don't know if that's true or not. But point being is, this is Elon Musk's grandfather who gives birth, who fathers his mother, who seems to be a techno witch, probably a sorceress. It seems there's a lot of evidence that Elon Musk's May Musk is a sorceress. She's definitely into some very, very strange aesthetics. Mm-hmm. And Elon has himself chosen to, name one of his children a sequence of numbers and X's, which is exactly what you had to do if you were a member of Technocracy Inc. in the 1930s. You had to give up your name and replace it with a series of numbers and X's.
Alphanumeric name.
Yeah. So you've got this type of thing. He's clearly not a smart person. Like, he's been a reputation has been cultivated around the brand of Elon as this, pseudo-autistic genius who's too brilliant to be able to defend or even expound upon the discoveries that are attributed to him, like all 19 patents. He can't expound upon how he discovered anything in public. He can't defend himself or his ideas in public, but that's because he's too brilliant to do so, they say. So he seems to fit all of the parameters of a cardboard cutout to me. And I think his usefulness now at trying to absorb and invoke this more dark spirit within disenfranchised, angry American patriots is a part of a broader plan to get the U.S. to self-cannibalize. So that's part of what I think of the Epstein story is how it's been used to be a part of this whole thing, and to evade the fact that there is this actual, very real, again, Pizzagate, the Podestas, all that stuff. That's what Marina Abramovich is as an advisor to world leaders and representative of children's, health in Ukraine as the Ukrainian ambassador to children. Like, what she represents, that's like the real story that people should be focusing on and discovering more about. And instead they get fixated on this object called this magic bullet called Epstein Island. And it's devoid of what it could be as far as a potent thing,